But I do think it's really important just to stand back from this, because what we've seen, or what we are seeing, is a country more divided than we've ever seen it, more than I can ever remember. Well, we're living in turbulent political times, and that's clearly an interpretation of the by-election.
And they looked at the Labour Party and they said, we don't really understand whether you're in favour or against. If you're against Brexit, the Lib Dems are the obvious choice.
Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility? Keir Starmer's recent BBC interview struck a chord with many when he candidly discussed the challenges of being Prime Minister. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. In this video, we'll explore how Starmer's admissions reflect the struggles many of us face in our own lives. From work-life balance to public scrutiny, we'll examine the universal themes that emerged from this unexpected moment of vulnerability. Keir Starmer's recent BBC interview revealed a side of political leadership rarely seen in public. The Labour leader's candid admission about the toll of his position caught many off guard. It's easy to forget that behind the polished speeches and carefully crafted public images, politicians are human beings grappling with immense pressure.
It was a terrible result for Labour, and clearly what happened was that voters were trying to decide about Brexit. It seemed to be a Brexit by-election.
Well, we're living in turbulent political times, and that's clearly an interpretation of the by-election. And the Tories and UKIP are speaking only for a group within the 52%. They're building a future around that group. We will continue to work, as we have done in the 4 months in government, on issues of security, our economy and global conflict.
The expectations placed on political leaders are nothing short of Herculean. We demand they be visionaries, problem solvers, and moral compasses all at once. But Starmer's confession highlights the stark contrast between public perception and the grinding reality of day-to-day leadership. While we might see a confident figure at the dispatch box, the truth is far more complex. Starmer spoke about the impact on his family life and personal relationships, painting a picture of a man constantly torn between duty and personal connections. It's a struggle many can relate to, albeit on a smaller scale. The demands of leadership don't stop at the office door. They seep into every aspect of life, from missed family dinners to sleepless nights worrying about national crises. Political psychologists have long studied the effects of leadership stress, and their insights shed light on Starmer's experience. The constant scrutiny, the weight of decision-making, and the need to maintain a public persona all contribute to a uniquely challenging psychological environment. It's no wonder that burnout and anxiety are common among those in high-power positions. As we consider Starmer's revelations, it's worth pondering the true cost of public service. Are we asking too much of our leaders? The pressure to appear invulnerable can create a disconnect between politicians and the public they serve. By opening up about his struggles, Starmer may have inadvertently touched on a broader societal issue, our collective difficulty in acknowledging vulnerability and the human limitations we all share. Starmer's openness raises intriguing questions about the future of political discourse. Will this moment of vulnerability change how we view our leaders, or will the relentless nature of politics quickly overshadow this brief glimpse behind the curtain? As we move forward, it's crucial to consider how these personal revelations might shape the political landscape and our expectations of those who lead us.
So you've got the Tories and UKIP saying the 52% forget the 48. You've got the Lib Dems saying the 48%. But I do think it's really important just to stand back from this, because what we've seen, or what we are seeing, is a country more divided than we've ever seen it, more than I can ever remember. And understandably, the 48%, you can feel this across the country. I've been across the country. They feel that they're being written out of their own history.
Going to turn something around, you have to do the hard yards up front. Don't look at a tough decision and then leave it for a year or two. So we're doing the tough stuff.
While Starmer's personal revelations have sparked debate, his policy proposals are stirring up an even bigger storm. From NHS reforms to economic plans, Starmer's vision for Britain is bold. But is it achievable? Critics argue his cautious approach might be his downfall, yet supporters see a methodical leader playing the long game. Starmer's 10-year plan for the NHS sounds impressive on paper, but many are questioning its practicality. With long waiting times and staff shortages plaguing the healthcare system, critics argue that his incremental changes aren't addressing the urgent issues at hand. The public is desperate for immediate solutions, not just long-term promises. The Labour leader's economic strategy has also come under fire. While Starmer boasts about securing investments from giants like Amazon and Blackstone, skeptics point out that these deals were likely in the pipeline before his leadership. It's a stark reminder of the gap between political rhetoric and economic reality. Starmer's focus on stability and long-term planning has its supporters. Some see it as a refreshing change from the chaos of recent years. But for families grappling with the cost of living crisis, his approach feels disconnected from their immediate needs. The question remains, can Starmer balance his vision for the future with the pressing demands of the present? Critics haven't held back, labeling Starmer's leadership as wobbly and cautious. They point to a lack of bold reforms and the controversies surrounding his government as distractions from his agenda. This perception could seriously undermine public trust in his ability to lead effectively. Take Starmer's promises on housing, for example. He's pledged to build more affordable homes, but rising building costs and planning delays remain significant barriers. Without addressing these fundamental issues, his housing promises risk joining the long list of unfulfilled political commitments.
The Lib Dems have then taken the opportunity to speak to the 48%. They've got nothing to say to the 52%.
And they looked at the Labour Party and they said, we don't really understand whether you're in favour or against. If you're against Brexit, the Lib Dems are the obvious choice.
Now, Labour
You guys being squeezed to pieces in the middle.
We have members and we have voters and we have MPs in both camps. We've got a billionaire Prime Minister and a billionaire Prime Minister, both of whose families have used schemes to avoid millions of pounds of tax, smearing a working-class woman.
The media has been quick to highlight the disconnect between Starmer's ambitious vision and the slow pace of change. Many are questioning whether his long-term plans can translate into real, tangible improvements in people's lives. It's a challenge that all leaders face: how to balance visionary thinking with practical, immediate action. As we look ahead, the success of Starmer's leadership will likely hinge on his ability to navigate these competing demands. Can he maintain his focus on long-term goals while also delivering the quick wins that the public craves? The answer to this question could shape not just Starmer's political future, but the direction of UK politics as a whole. As we wrap up our exploration of Keir Starmer's revealing interview, it's clear that political leadership in today's climate is a complex balancing act. Starmer's candid admissions have shed light on the personal toll of public service, while his policy proposals highlight the challenge of meeting immediate needs and long-term vision. The future of UK politics under Starmer's leadership remains uncertain. His cautious approach may provide stability, but it also risks alienating those desperate for rapid change. The success of his premiership will likely hinge on his ability to bridge this gap between measured reform and urgent action. Ultimately, Starmer's struggles reflect a broader tension in our political system. The public demands both visionary leadership and practical solutions, often underestimating the challenges of delivering both simultaneously. As we move forward, it's crucial to recognize the human limitations of our leaders while holding them accountable for their promises. The path ahead for Starmer and the UK is far from clear, but it's certain to be a compelling chapter in British political history.